beginning a career in tech, right? So that is what we are all here for. We are all here to understand that. Now, I'm not going to keep it specific to, how to begin a career in tech or something. In fact, whenever you try to reach a particular goal and then you start for it, then there are three questions that comes to your mind. Okay. And what those three questions are? So first there is a what, and then there is a how, and then there is a why. What means that what exactly do I need to do to get there, to get to my goal? Okay. How means that, hey, how exactly do I do those things? And why means that why am I supposed to do those things, right? Why not some other set of things? Why does company expect that thing? Why does it not expect something that I am already an expert in, right? So we'll just try to touch base upon those points. So let's first start with the what part of it. Okay. So what does a company expect from a software developer? So there are three things that are written over here. First thing is computational thinking, then systems thinking, and then design thinking. And I think all of you must have at least sorted an array using bubble sort, or maybe written a code for linear search of an element in an array. So that is something called as computational thinking. Computational thinking means maths. On a high level, it means maths, it means dealing with puzzles and all these kinds of things. And then you have systems thinking, which I'll come to, and then you have design thinking. So these, if you know these three things, then you are a versatile software developer. Then there is no area that is untouched. Okay, because any interview, any company that will take will be based upon either of these three things. Let's move on to this computational thinking, what exactly it is. So this sums it up. Data structures and algorithms is what computational thinking is. And this is, the heart of computer science. Now, why is it a heart of computer science? Because, all the other high level concepts that you learn, be it DBMS, be it OS, or be it, let's say, system design, they are hinged around this. So if DS algo keeps beating within you, then the other things will also keep beating, right? And why is that so? Let's just take a quick example. How many of you have read about databases? So what exactly is a database? I would say database is a special kind of data structure. It's nothing different. It's a special kind of data structure. And one such special data structure used for databases is binary index tree. And you might have even heard of it. So that is the reason learning data structures and algorithms becomes very important. And along with, when you learn data structures and algorithms, then your ability to deal with new problems becomes very, very easy. You very quickly decide that, okay, so and so is the algorithm that will be applicable. This is the problem, maybe I'll use two pointer method. Okay, this is the problem, two pointer cannot be used, so I have to do brute force or something like that, right? So this kind of decision making cannot be performed if you are not great at it. Okay. And in interviews, what generally happens is that you have to do such kind of things only. A problem will be thrown at you, and then you have to consider multiple approaches, options, do analysis, which one is good, which one is bad, talk about that to your interviewer, and that gives him an idea that, okay, you are an adaptable engineer, you can think through multiple approaches and pick the best one out. Okay, apart from that, there is something called as maths. So whenever you learn DSA, whenever you learn algorithms, then maths becomes a very, very important part of it. Okay, for example, if you have to learn something like bit manipulation, okay, then it is very important for you to know things about maybe combinatorics and things about permutations and all, because you might have to do those in bits. Now like out of the 4 years that I have 4 interesting years that I have spent while spending time with learners and helping them learn better, I have found that uh, one thing which is very much needed is the need of depth. And that depth becomes stronger when you spend a lot of time understanding the mathematical and logical part of any data structures or algorithms, rather than just uh, understanding it on a high level and doing some standard problems. Because if you do that, then it becomes tough for you to adapt to a new problem. So I'll talk about that depth part also later on. But yeah, that being said, over here I can say that data structures and algorithms is absolutely important. And some of the must do data structures are stacks, queues, And I'm naming them literally. So these are must do: stacks, queues, then you have trees, then you have linked list, then you have graphs, and then you have something called as heaps. So if you just do these data structures, then you will be at a state where you can very easily adapt to a new data structure, okay, and face many different problems that companies ask. The third thing is very interesting, which is testing and reasoning abilities. Now, why is testing ability important? So this is very important because it allows a company or an interviewer to understand that whether you can test your own code or not, whether you can debug it on your own or not. So let's take a very simple example. I'll take the easiest one so that most of you can make it out. Let's say I ask you that, hey, you write a code where you are supposed to delete a node from the linked list. Just delete a node from the linked list. Do you have to be careful about a particular edge case over here? How many of you feel there might be an edge case in this question? I mean, it's very easy to delete from a linked list, right? But there is something which might get a bit tricky. So what if node does not exist? And what if you are supposed to delete the head of the linked list? Because if you're supposed to delete the head of the linked list, you have to create a new head. I mean, you have to assign head to the next node of the previous head, right? Yeah, so that's the point. So, this was a very simple example. Now, in real world, what happens is that if you're not good at, coming up with different test cases of your own code, or imagine that, hey, these are the kind of situations that might happen, then it becomes tough for you to write industry level code. Because in industry level code, trust me, things get more notorious. I mean, there are different users that are using your website. They can enter anything, and then you have to process it. And let's say they enter such thing that brings your system down because of such certain reason, then that will be very bad, right? So testing abilities is very important. And then comes reasoning abilities. Reasoning abilities means that if your interviewer asks you that, hey, why this solution is better than the other solution, you should be able to say that, hey, maybe the time taken by this is more, or the space taken by this is more, right? So these entire thing, frame up this computational thinking, and you have to hone it, you have to nurture it, because without it you cannot move to the other two thinkings that you have seen. The other two thinkings you remember, right? What were those were systems thinking and design thinking. So if you're not good at this, you cannot move at this. And just look at the last line that I have mentioned over here. So whether you are an entry level engineer, which is SDE1, or you are a bit experienced one, if you interview at product based firms, and any top startup, anything like that, or be it something like FANG companies, then they will test your DS algo skills, right? Because they want problem solvers. They do not want somebody who is expert at, let's say, Golang, or somebody who is expert at Node.js, right? And the reason for that is very simple. What if Node.js disappears tomorrow? What if nobody uses it? What if they have to move their tech stack? So you should be adaptable, and data structures algorithms makes you adaptable. Okay, systems thinking. Now, what is systems thinking? So there are a few things which are written over here. So guys, even for a fresher, one thing that becomes very important is his low level design skills. And what is low level design skills? So, when I have written system thinking, then there are two parts of it. First part is low level. You can call it low level systems thinking instead of calling low level design. You can call it low level systems thinking, and then there is a high level systems thinking. Okay. So now when you talk about low level system thinking, it means that how clean your code is. So if somebody is reading your code, he should be able to understand it flawlessly. And that is very important in interviews, because many people, what they do is that they know the logic, but they write a dirty kind of code. So dirty code means that you are repeating the same logic again and again. For example, let's say you have to find HCF, highest common factor of two numbers. Now, one way to do that is to simply declare a function and reuse that function. The other way is to write the same logic in the main function also, in some other function also. That is dirty. So these are important parts of low level systems thinking. Okay, apart from that, you should be good with the fundamental concepts of OOPS. But let me tell you again, as I'm walking you through these slides, the most important thing still remains computational part. Because if you are 100% comfortable with computational thinking, then you will be able to appreciate these things, that, okay, why do these things exist, and how to become great at them. Okay. Apart from that, there are certain high level system stuffs that you should know, like operating systems, database management system, computer networks. And now you might wonder that, hey, where are they utilized? Where, okay, there are a lot of theory behind these things, but how to use them and where to use them. So how many of you have ever built a web application or a browser application or a simple website, something like that, or an Android app? So did you notice that all these three things, operating systems, DBMS, computer networks, have been used there? If you did not notice, I'll just maybe help you recall it. So if it was a website, did you have to make something like an HTTP request from your client to a server? Did you have to do that? You must have to do that, right? For that, it is important for you to know that what is an HTTP or what is an HTTPS or what are networking protocols? How do the computers talk, right? But let me tell you again, you cannot be a good programmer if you are just good about systems stuffs but not the problem solving part of it, because it might happen that, hey, let's say the two computers are talking to each other by HTTPS protocol. Now let's say there is a lot of lag in that, there is a lot of latency in that. Can you switch over to some other better protocol, maybe something like TCP or something else, right? Can you do that? If you can do that, then why do you want to do that, right? So only a good problem solver can analyze that. So again, reasoning abilities comes over here, right? Databases you must have used, right? So to store the data, there is one very, very basic thing, very, very fundamental thing that all of us are missing. And the reason I have asked this question is to focus that it is very important for us to build the depth. Whenever you learn a topic, then you might learn it at a high level from somewhere, right? I mean, you just learn the fundamentals of it, but if you do not go deep into it, then these kind of things happen. So let me tell you one thing, guys. Let's say you have written a program, C program, and you have a main function, and that main function creates an array. Now uh, when your program terminates, or let's say your computer shuts down, then is that array still available to you in the memory? That is not available. Would you want that to happen for the roll numbers? So let's imagine you are storing roll numbers of candidates. Would you want it to happen that if your computer shuts down, then you lose track of all those roll numbers? You would never want that to happen, right? And why does it happen so, guys? Why does it happen that the data of array gets lost? It happens because it is stored on your RAM, which is your random access memory. Yeah, great. And what kind of device is that? Is that a persistent device or is that a volatile? Yeah, it's a volatile device, right? So you need to write that data on a non-volatile device. Now, can you tell me a non-volatile device on a computer? Your hard disk. So if you write that data on a file and if that file is present in the hard disk, then what happens is that that becomes a persistent storage. This is the most fundamental thing about uh, databases, that you can create different data structures like trees, heaps, tries, segment trees, but as long as you're creating them in the RAM, okay, then they are all losable. You can lose them if the power goes off or if your program terminates because of any reason. So database is a special kind of persistent data structure. Database is a data structure that resides on hard disk. Does that make sense? And now let's just try to connect the dots. How did we understand? We did not go into things like, what tables are or what, things like primary key and foreign key are. I haven't given this example for data structure learning, but the same kind of trend has to be followed, must be followed there as well. You must start from the very basics, and then you should move on and on and on whenever you are learning a new thing. Okay, anyways, I think I should move ahead. Yeah. Next thing is that you should know that, hey, what does a client mean? What does a server mean? So a simple example is that your browser is a client and maybe google.com is a server. And what is this thing called as load balancer? So again, these are system specific things. So as the name suggests, a load balancer is a special machine that takes the request and balances the load across different servers. And then a very important part of systems thinking is, distributed systems. That, hey, if let's say I have a lot of data, I can't keep it on one computer. So I need multiple computers. Some data I'll put on one computer, some data on another computer, and then I'll specify a communication mechanism across those computers so that they can talk to each other. Okay. Now the last line is important, that systems thinking is more important for people who are experienced. So as I have mentioned, that it's interview difficulty increases with increase in years of experience. So if you are a fresher, if you are, let's say, just 6 months experience or something, they probably just ask you low level stuffs. Okay, they'll expect you to know some OOPs. Okay, and in high level stuffs, they'll stick to things like OS, DBMS, computer networks, and they'll not ask a lot of the other things which are distributed systems and others. But if you are experienced, you must know that. Okay, yeah, and then comes this part called as design thinking. Design thinking is a very special kind of thing. It means your ability to understand your user. And what do I mean by this? So if you're a software programmer, it is your responsibility to ensure that if you have designed a website, many people love it. Now, let's say you see that your website is only being loved by Indians, but not by, let's say, internationals. Then is there some improvement that can be done in UI? Can you do that? Now, that is also an ability that a software engineer should possess. If you possess, then that is great. If you don't possess, then the time will teach you how to possess that, because once you join in this industry, it will be an ask from you to create products which people can love. And these questions related to design thinking are not asked to general software developers, but if you are interviewing for roles like UI UX designer, or even for a front end developer or a product lead, which is a senior role, then you would be asked such kind of questions. Okay, let me go back to this slide. So now the most important part, that was computational thinking. I would say that whenever you are learning data structures and algorithms, something like this, something like maths, okay, then there are plethora of questions out there, plethora of patterns out there. The most important thing for you is to first pick important patterns, that okay, this is an important pattern, this is another one which is substandard, and then practice some assorted problems on those. So the reason I have been able to make this thing out is because since last 4 years maybe, and I was dealing with some of the learners, I found it out that maybe they were trying their hands on random things. But if your effort is channelized in a direction where you are trying your hands on assorted problems, okay, and you are learning the different patterns rather than just doing 10 questions on a single pattern, then the outputs are much better. Okay, and keeping that in mind, we have even designed one thing that we'll talk about in some time later. But yeah, the everything boils down to that simple thing, that depth is very essential. Okay, and without that you can always falter. Okay, cool. Now I'll come to the how part of it. So the how part of that how do you exactly learn these things, is that depth of understanding, as I already said. So all of you must have heard of something like binary search, right? Can binary search solve problems of unsorted arrays or strings? The answer to this is yes. See, binary search is not confined to the zone of solving problems on sorted arrays or strings. It has a huge application. Okay, and it can solve many tricky problems that might not be solved by any other algorithm. And those tricky problems can contain unsorted arrays, unsorted strings as well, right? So this is a very important point to understand, and you gain this depth when you actually understand what binary search is, rather than just understanding that okay, keep dividing into half and then just going on and on. So this is something which is quite important, and I have seen that people who nail this, they do not need to do 1000 questions or something like that. Okay, cool. Next thing is practice of assorted problems, and in the bracket you can see they evolve. Yes, they evolve. So for example, maybe 3 years or 4 years before, problems based on DP on trees or DP on bit masks, DP, which is dynamic programming, were not so popular. But now these days they have become popular, right? And why they have become popular? Because technologies are changing, people are trying to become good at problem solving, so they practice even harder problems, and then they expect the same from the other candidates as well. And it is always good to learn them and become better at them. So the first two are very, very important. Third thing is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition means that once you have been asked a problem in an interview, then you should be able to find it out that, okay, this problem falls into the category of maybe merge process that I have learned in merge sort, right? And how does this pattern recognition happen? How do you recognize that, hey, this question falls in this pattern? So there are multiple things over here. First thing is discussion. Whatever you are solving, when you have the discussion of that, maybe with the person who's teaching you, or maybe with the community of learners that you are a part of, then you get different insights. You get that, hey, this guy thought it that way. Why did he think about it that way? It doesn't fall in that category, it falls in this category, right? And then another thing is that you are being regularly assessed. So you are solving problems consistently, then you see a pattern repeating consistently, and then you automatically become good at that. Okay, and it is equally important to become good at it. Okay, then comes this mapping abilities. Mapping abilities is something which can help. If it helps, it helps a lot. So you saw a question in an interview which is just a twisted version of a question that you have already solved, maybe on Codeforces, right? And this happens when you solve questions in a bulk basis. So when you solve a lot of questions, if you regularly take part in assessments, you practice on a variety of platforms, then this thing automatically emerges. And then occasional mentorship. So if you get someone to help you out with your specific needs. So it usually happens that even if I teach a group of, let's say, 50 students, then everyone has some special kind of need. So maybe there is some guy who is very good at maths, but maybe he fails at handling edge cases. And then there is another guy who handles edge cases very well, but maybe he is not very good with language specific constructs. Okay, so that is also very important, so that someone gets to know you, interacts you on an occasional basis, provides you the right feedback. So that also kind of helps a lot. It has to be a mix of everything. It has to be a mix of a lot of effort from your side, and then someone who can interact with you on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis, something like that. So it becomes your responsibility to first hone your skills, first gain depth in the topic, and then discuss it with whoever you like to, whoever you feel comfortable with, right? And then learning and encouraging community. Yeah, so usually sometimes what happens that if we do something alone, then we get bored and then we leave it, we get demotivated, right? But if you have a community of learners, it can never happen that, hey, all of them are demotivated at the same go, right? So you learn from others and you motivate others when you do well, right? And the last point is that these same things are applicable in systems plus design studies as well. Even if you do that, you have to follow the same kind of path. Does it give you an idea of that, a holistic picture of how to do things, how to learn and, maybe become better at tackling interviews, solving problems? So this is probably the last one. Now, I would answer that, hey, why these things are important and why other things are not so important as these? The answer to that is, at the end of the day, everything is a problem. So even in industry, somebody wants you to, let's say, create an admin dashboard. Then saying that, hey, create an admin dashboard is an airy fairy thing, right? But in actually, when you go ahead and code it, then you have to take care of many different things, which is a problem. So what if the username or password is null? Okay, how do I encrypt my data? Which algorithm did I use? So it translates to a problem, and problem means 99% of the time it's a problem of data structures and algorithms. Okay. Okay, so let's come to the second point. It helps you become a robust and adaptive engineer. So why? The answer is very simple. If you are good at all these three things, and let's say tomorrow, your company migrates to a different tech stack, you will be very easily able to adapt to it, because you're a good problem solver. And why you are robust? You are robust because you can do things end to end. You know how systems function. You know when the computers talk, how do they talk? You know which kind of data structure is better. Okay, so that is a good thing to have. And the last thing is, it gives you a bright personal career. So whenever you want to switch, whatever role you want to transition into, you can very easily do that. If you want to move into, let's say, you start loving UI UX, you want to move into that, and you have some idea of design thinking, some idea of how do browser based applications work and everything. So then that makes a lot of sense to you. But going back to the basic, I would say I covered a lot of things. I in fact covered everything that a software developer should know in his entire lifetime. I would say the starting point of it, which enlightens it within anyone, is being good at problem solving, which is honing your data structures and algorithms from fundamentals. Once you do that, then everything else becomes effortless. Okay, cool.